Welcome to Two Bitches in a Broom podcast episode again. I don't know, 16, I think. And thank you for joining us. We appreciate you being here. For today's show topic, we're going to get into the conversation of reincarnation and past lives. I feel like that's something, it definitely pokes at your nosy antennas when people hear past life. Like, ooh, I know it did for me. I went down that rabbit hole hard, man. So, um, let's start with how about we start with what would be the general uh, definition or kind of consensus of reincarnation and past life? How would you explain that?
So reincarnation is the belief structure that when you die, your physical body dies, your spirit lives on, and then your spirit has an opportunity to come back to Earth and take on a new form, a new physical body. That's the gist of reincarnation. And you continue to do that over and over and over and over again. And the reason why you're doing that is you are developing your soul. You are reaching the apex of all knowledge. Yeah.
Here's a question that that just popped in my head. What's your take when someone asks you, do we always just incarnate into this realm, like to Earth? Are there other dimensions and realms and areas that a soul can opt to reincarnate in
Oh,
incarnate into?
yeah. So I do past life regression, and I can tell
Mm-hmm.
you, in my experience, in the many regressions that I've done, yeah, people definitely have more incarnations than just this realm. For sure. For
Gotcha.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. I know I highly encourage anyone who's listening or watching this, if you've never experienced a past life regression,
Mhm.
you should add that to your list.
Yeah.
Because
It's
if anything, it's just super cool to experience and kind of opens you up to a lot of understanding with things that relate to this life, your challenges and stuff
absolutely.
in this life. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I just had the thought too, because this has been a topic that has been popping up this past week of past lives and connections and things like that. And I saw something that made me kind of laugh. And I've always thought about this from even way, way, way eons back before. Just imagine how many shells, containers that we have shed through the course of our souls
Sure.
incarnations all over
Mhm.
this rock, you know? And I feel like the past lives, and like, especially like when you go into past life regression and things like that and exploring it, um, I found it to be super helpful in understanding aspects of your soul in this life, not even just with challenges, but with just who you are too. I don't know if that's something, is that an experience that you had when you went down that rabbit hole of past lives as well?
Absolutely. For me, when I really started studying spirituality, the higher self always seemed so elusive to me. You know what I mean? It was like,
Mm,
okay, I understand the concept, but yeah, kind of sort of not really. And
yeah.
I really wanted to pursue the route of reincarnation because that to me quantified the reality of the higher self, this all-knowing version of you
Mm,
that had incarnated so many times, has all this information, and it definitely made it very concrete to me. It explained to me why metaphysically things came so easily to me in this lifetime,
mm-hmm.
because after I pursued uh the understanding of reincarnation, and I absolutely had hypnosis for reincarnation several times.
Mm-hmm.
It was very concrete. Oh my gosh, I've done this time and time and time and time and time again. No wonder it's not a challenge. That's why it's so easy for me.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and in my own practice, when I do regressions, I don't do it. I don't do regressions for people, just so you know. Like, hey, last time you were a farmer, how in the hell is that going to help you? Right.
Right, right.
So as shamans, we're always seeking to, how can we help this soul while they are
Mm-hmm.
here in this existence to reach their path, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I always pursue it with the knowledge of these past lives that you've tried to reach the soul lesson and you failed. What are they? How did you fail? And how can you utilize this knowledge to succeed in this lifetime, to complete it?
Right, right. To
You
get
know,
it right. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, which I think is super beneficial. Super. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm the only practitioner that does it, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I think that's it. Because I know I had, so I'm, I was just, I was just flat out fucking nosy. That's what it was. When I fell down that rabbit hole, I was just like, ooh, I want to know everything. But I feel like when I fell down that path and really going into understanding past lives, it was answering the question for myself of why do I feel so drawn to so many areas of the world and cultures and all of this stuff. I had no, I've never been to this part of the world in this life, right? But
sure.
I just feel so connected and so drawn. And I feel like I know that, you know,
Yeah.
and I feel like it was super beneficial um, with understanding your role as a practitioner and that I know we call it like developmental stuff and you're learning, but I know I say the same thing I know you say is I'm not teaching you anything new. I'm just reminding your soul of what you already know,
Right.
and I feel like that helped tremendously with just accepting that, oh, I've done this before. I've carried these, I've practiced this way before, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like it helped me a lot just accept my path as a practitioner. Um, because I know and I'm sure there's people out there that feel this way when they're just starting out and they feel just so new and they don't know what they're doing, but your soul does, so I think past life stuff, going down that rabbit hole, was beneficial for me in that way. I get what you're saying though with the higher self
Yeah.
connection, you know.
Yeah. Because my brain, I'm just so science based, it's ironic. Again, I've said this a million
Mm-hmm.
times, but that I'm in this field because it's like, prove it to me, prove it.
Right, right.
And then I'm pursuing metaphysics. It's like, that's the most ironic part ever.
Right.
That's how I've always been. And the higher self just seems so elusive. Like, okay, there's this all-knowing version of me without
Mm-hmm.
worries, without the constraints of the physical existence. That is the vibration we should always be reaching for, right? That's common
Mm-hmm.
thought.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's very hard to imagine that version of you, right?
Right.
So when I pursued reincarnation and I understood the
Mm-hmm.
previous lives that I had had and my roles in those lives and the lessons I had attained in those lives, that made me go, oh, the higher self is so much more than I had ever
Mm.
considered, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So tapping into that, yeah, you bet your sweet ass you want to tap into that. It made it
Yeah.
totally understandable for me. at that point.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I know, like, I always thought I, in the beginning, I had struggled with the concept of higher self because what do you mean? There's a version of you that's you, but not necessarily you in this. It's
Yeah.
kind of uh like riddle me this, Batman. How does that work out if this is not all of me, but there's a higher version of me?
Yeah.
You know, why didn't I come all together
Yeah.
in one piece? Um, but yeah, so I can see how that understanding of the higher self, even in past lives, reincarnation and stuff, kind of all start to fall into place and make sense.
And
Um,
I think that there is this belief that, when you're going in, at least it was for me, I'm like, okay, what am I, Cleopatra? You know what I mean? Like,
right,
woo!
right.
No, no, I was a witch out in the middle of the woods the first one I did. You know what I mean? So, um, it's not gonna be like that. You're not gonna be, I mean, you may, who knows, but you can have extraordinary experiences
Hmm.
in previous lives and just be a farmer. It can be
Yeah,
extraordinary, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, highly recommended. It tells you a lot about the decisions that you make now. Like, um, if you have a fear of water, let me give you an example.
Hmm.
If you have a
Hmm.
fear of water and you're like, yeah, I've never had any bad associations with water. I don't like water. I don't want to swim. I have nothing to do with water.
Hmm.
And you do a reincarnation and you found out that you were drowned your previous life, that's going to explain a lot why you have an issue with water in this life. And you
While you came
figured
into this
out.
life and you were like, nope, absolutely
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. So the only thing
Yeah,
I encourage you to do is don't disclose any of your fears to your regressionist. Don't
yeah.
disclose that. Let your true experience reflect on what you're living your life now and see if that correlates without,
Hmm.
feeding any information to your
Hmm.
regressionalist. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. I know, like with regression, one huge thing that it did for me was it helped me understand the dynamic of relationships in this life.
Right.
That was a big eye-opening experience
Mhm.
doing the regression and seeing those lives and the roles that were played in those lives. And it really made a lot of sense with, especially with a couple of individuals, of the struggle that is present in this life to have that deeper connection or the attempt to, and why that always just seems kind of like, you know, uh, so far away, like out of reach.
Mhm.
When I did the regression and when one of those lives presented and I walked through that, the or that particular person, that particular soul, I should say, in that life really made so much sense of the relationship that we carry and just how we both walk the path in this life. And I feel like I walked out of there, that session, with more understanding, but also a deeper compassion, towards the relationship. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, for yourself, it was very interesting understanding the correlation, but also I was surprised because I didn't expect that. You go into like a regression thinking, oh, I'm going to understand me, I'm going to experience my lives, you know, and
Yeah.
I didn't even think about the dynamic of the relationship that you have with certain people in this current life
Yeah.
and how that kind of is like, oh, like literally it was one life where a particular person, um, it's like, oh, shoot, that's why we're like this in this life. It's like totally flip. Like, oh, fuck. I've been trying to make sense of this for so long.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
after that, yeah, I really was like, there's some sort of like piece of of it that just kind of washes over. That was my experience,
Yeah.
and it opened the door for just a deeper level of understanding and compassion, and
Absolutely.
and I feel like even though I was the one that did the regression on some level between the two of our souls, we kind of came to a new level of understanding with each other.
Yeah.
It changed after that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
And
yeah.
I think um you start to understand, we've talked about soul families and soul groups
Mm-hmm.
in a different
Right,
episode,
right.
but when you start to do your regressions, you'll start to see who that is because the same people
Mm-hmm.
keep appearing. They keep appearing
Mm-hmm.
repeatedly. Um, and then you'll understand your role with them much better because your daughter in this life may have been your grandmother in another life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, your spouse in this life could have been your neighbor in another life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you're you've lived every um color, every creed, every ethnicity, every race, um, and every sex. I've been male more times than I have been female. Way more
Same.
times. Way more times, you
Same.
know?
Which totally makes sense with why you carry like more masculine
I
energy just
know.
by nature, and you
Yeah.
try to be like feminine, and it's just like I can be it for like a hot second, but I go right back to
Yeah.
uh so again, understanding how you operate and how your soul, the nature of your soul,
Yeah.
when you start to see like, oh yeah, I I I choose to spend more times as male than, female. Ah, yeah, that
Yeah.
duh.
Like, I remember specifically telling my husband during a conversation, I said, no, I chose to be the chick in this life. You will open the door. You will open the door. You will carry the coat. You will carry the purse. I am the girl.
Mm-hmm.
I get all the
Right.
benefits this time. So that's what we're doing,
Right, right.
And I know to anybody on the outside looking in, they're probably going, what the fuck is this lady on? But like that's genuinely how I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're gonna take it for a spin. We're gonna see this girl thing if it's working
What's
out.
what's the hype of this girl thing?
It out if it's worth it. But I've been a male far more than a female. And I have been a person of color far more than I have been a Caucasian, which is interesting, you know?
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
it makes you look at your fellow man differently. I don't know about you,
Mm-hmm.
but like when I see the homeless people on the street, I stop. I stop because that could have been me in a different life, in the same circumstances,
Yeah.
you
I
know?
think about that. I I've always kind of thought about that, and I didn't know at the time, as again, years and years ago, one hiccup that I had with organized religion, and
Mhm.
I come from a Catholic background, was the concept of you live, you die, you go to heaven forever, the end, right?
Mhm.
And one thing that really upset me at the time of just truly accepting that was, you mean to tell me that I only get one life and all of this happens to me?
Yeah.
What makes me different from somebody else who I'm looking at who has, the stable upbringing, less trauma, stuff
Yeah.
like that, didn't have the experiences that I have. And you're fucking telling me I only have one shot
Mhm.
and this is what happens, and then that's it. So I never could resonate. I could never accept it. I could never accept it. And I would walk around and see homeless people, see people in different levels of life and stuff like that. And I would think that, yeah, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
That concept does not make sense to me. And, you know, again, being drawn to so many parts of the world. I feel like in my exploration of past lives, am pretty even keeled around experiencing so many different things, like, which makes sense why my whole thing is like, stay open minded, try things out twice. You never know.
Mhm.
Doing that. And then after the fact of exploring past lives and regressions and things, on my own and having regressions done, you look at like homeless, like you say, and I think, wow, yeah, that was probably me in a life, or they they chose that experience. I wonder what their core lesson is by having that experience, it's very fascinating, I think.
I actually, I think it was only like 20 clients that I did this with. So I want to make sure I'm not making it sound like, "Oh, it's a case
Hmm.
study with 100 people." No, it's only like 20 people. But I intentionally, and they all gave me permission. We talked about it before, but I wanted to see which life they had that was the most abundant materialistically. And
Mm,
it was always the very first one that they could recall. And I
really?
found that to be very interesting. So I have no proof of this. Okay. For the record, I have no proof. This is just my
Yeah.
working theory. But I believe that it's like, hey, you want to go to Earth? You want to develop
Oh, yeah, yeah,
you can
yeah.
your first life, you will have all the material, belongings that you could possibly want. It's still developing your soul because you will understand that having everything doesn't mean you have everything inside, right?
Right, right.
There's a
Hmm,
lot
hmm,
that you sacrifice that a lot of people don't think about. But
hmm,
I thought that that was very interesting. So in my mind, to kind of circle back what you were saying, I
hmm.
wonder if when you're getting towards the end of your life, you are the homeless person because you don't care about the material shit. You're like, yeah, whatever.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a
Yeah.
really good perspective to look at it, is because it's kind of like coming full circle,
Yeah.
right? On the material spectrum
Hmm.
of coming in and getting to experience all of these things. Oh, but you know what I just thought of too? That also kind of falls in line with why people wonder, and I've heard, and I myself have asked this, and I've heard a lot of people talk about it, why material things come so easily for some people, or they come into that kind of stuff. But, and I feel like that's part of the reason that term was coined, money and abundance don't always equal,
Happiness
the
and
quality and
fulfillment.
happiness
Yeah.
and stuff,
Yeah.
but I see a lot of people who
But
get
money makes
frustrated
me
with,
very happy. I got to be honest. It makes me very
yeah,
happy.
it's
I have a very healthy relationship with money.
but
Uh-huh.
it really makes it an interesting outlook to see those who are not in the understanding of metaphysics or abundance or law of attraction or anything of that sort, but just like they have so much and things just come so easily, and oftentimes, not every time, but oftentimes they're like the shittier kind of person. I've heard it, I'm sure you've heard it, of like, this person is like self-absorbed or kind of not nice and mean, but
Absolutely.
yet why does everything get thrown their way, and I try to do the right thing? How many times have you heard people say that?
Sure. Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
so that's an interesting look on it too. I didn't think about that, but yeah, I highly encourage everyone, if you haven't done a regression, a amazing thing to do, and just see what unfolds for you.
Yeah.
um I know, and I know there's like self-guided or guided meditations, like regression style too. And I know when I first went down this rabbit hole, I was looking up past life, anything I could get my hands on like past life regression, past lives,
Hmm.
um stuff like that. And I know, like, I spent probably, I don't want to lie, but maybe it was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I got a clear quartz, and every night before I went to bed, I sat with it and I meditated with it. And because it's like amplify your intention, right? Show me a life, show me a life. Um, and eventually, like through the dream state, I got to experience a couple of different lives. Um, not fun when they came. And it was a surreal experience. But like you said back before too, it's not. I think one misconception is that people either assume or it's just, I don't know how it came about, but it's not always going to be this high and mighty role. It's not always going to be
Nope.
some royalty figure or some famous figure.
I know.
The very first one that I ever saw when I was doing that whole meditating with the crystal every night religiously before I went to bed for like 2 or 3 weeks, was a soldier, and I got shot and I died. Uh, and I could see myself it's like looking in the mirror, but it's a different suit. And I still, till this day, and this is like 10 years ago, remember every single detail, texture of the skin, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was a male, here I go again.
Did your
Male, and
features
I
stay
died.
the same to you?
Um, for the most part, it was interesting. I felt like bone structure kind
Mm-hmm.
of was like the same,
Mm-hmm.
and and after that, in the dream state, I saw a couple more past lives that came through. And even in those points, I would notice, like, especially this area right here would kind of look similar, even with like the male one, the soldier. I was way taller, but for some reason this area kind of still looked familiar. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that did.
Yeah, that's something
Yeah.
I hear from everybody, that there's some facial structure that's familiar. It's different, but same,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know?
Same,
Um,
but different.
yeah, yeah. So it's
So.
it's fun though. I think it's an opportunity to really explore who you are as a whole. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Um,
Mm-hmm.
not just who you are right now, but the bigger, broader picture of who you are. And
Yeah. Yeah.
understanding the soul lessons that you have been trying to achieve,
Mm-hmm.
like if you've lived like 3 or 4 lives, right? I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
lived 3 or 4 lives and you're like, man, I've achieved blah 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 blah, but this one lesson, I can't get it. It's evading me. It's a
Mm-hmm.
perfect opportunity to look at your previous lives and go, oh, that's why I failed.
Mm-hmm.
I can look at
Mm-hmm.
those, like I do 3 lives. So here's these 3 lives that I have failed those 3 times. And
Mm-hmm.
those lives are all I did the exact same thing. Why do I keep doing this? And then you look
Yeah.
at your current life and you're like, oh my God, I'm doing it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It'll give you an opportunity to kind of jump out of that loop and get her done so you can move forward onto something else,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. I want to say too, like even back when you were talking about something I found interesting with the topic of experiences and uh, trauma with previous lives into this life. Something I found super interesting was, when you were talking about water, like if you don't like water
Yeah.
in this life, it's
Yeah.
probably because you drowned in another life.
Yeah.
I had this point in time where I hit my I don't know, it was probably in my first 30s. I hit my I was years old.
Yeah.
But I it was this area where all of a sudden I started having these like panic attacks going over like bridges, and like the highway, like off ramps and
Yeah.
things like that, like the bigger stuff and bridges. And I didn't notice I was doing it. I would come to it and like go, and usually I drive like I should be a NASCAR driver. And I would notice that I would get off and my hands would be like so white because I would be gripping so hard on
Uh-huh.
the steering wheel, and I didn't pay attention to it. And I thought, why do I never had a problem again? I would go over these off ramps and bridges and think like, again, NASCAR driver,
Sure.
kind of thing. And all of a sudden, I found myself having these like panic attacks going over these bridges and stuff. And as I'm asking, this is so weird. Why am I having such this reaction? And I sat and I kind of was talking to my team about it and exploring,
Uh-huh.
and then a friend posed this light bulb moment to me about it, and she had said, just out of nowhere, I think it was, maybe that was a past life around that same age range, that you were thrown off a bridge or died in an accident off a bridge or something with it.
Sure.
And it was just like ding. And I thought, oh wow.
Yeah.
I didn't take it immediately like, oh, that's the truth. But I was like, okay, wow. That
Yeah.
let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And sure enough, as I'm talking with my team about it and going through and exploring that, yeah, after that, it went away, stopped all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, like the drowning thing, like not liking water, there too can come points, through the life that your soul remembers you had this experience, and you're kind of reliving it, again, and feeling that. Um, I never thought that was a thing
Yeah.
that.
I think you'll be really surprised. People who have like they're diehards, and I'm not trying to be political in any fashion,
Hmm. Hmm.
but people who are diehard against guns, right?
Mm. Hmm.
That's
Yeah, that's
interesting.
a
I
good
had a
one.
client who was literally didn't disclose anything, and afterwards she had said, "Oh my gosh, I hate them. I hate them. Now I understand why I hate them because she was murdered by a gun,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah, that's why she hates them. That's why, her current partner, who actually ironically was a cop and had to have one. So had to have
Mm.
it. It was locked up and it still
That's
made her
interesting.
panicky. Yeah,
Yeah,
see?
that's interesting how that you put yourself in that situation
Yeah,
to confront it.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I see her probably about once every 6 months to do a reading,
Hmm.
and she's totally, completely healed that within her life. Completely healed that. So it's bringing that to the
Yeah.
awareness, bringing it to your awareness and going, okay, now I get it. Now I understand. And that was before, not now. And
Hmm.
right here, right now, I'm completely okay. And
Right, right,
can fundamentally change your life and your outlook. So
right. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely
Yeah,
beneficial.
that is. I think I kind of equate that to, how we talk about just even balancing the healthy relationship with the ego
Mhm.
and giving your ego new experiences.
Sure.
This happened to us before, but it's okay right now.
Yeah.
With, even healing those parts of your past life. Okay, my soul may have experienced that before,
Yeah.
but that's not right now,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is super fascinating how individuals who have had challenges or experiences with certain things, like the guns,
Mm.
will put themselves directly in a situation where they cross paths with that same topic.
And it's been my experience as well that people who have financial issues, who are consistently having financial issues, are people who have had abundant lives and
Mm-hmm.
lacked all personal growth during that time. Like they didn't have good interpersonal relationships. They got backstabbed a lot, things of that nature. And in this
Mm.
life, they're like, yeah, money
Mm-hmm.
is horrible. It's the enemy. So that's why
Right,
they have
right,
financial problems.
right. Well, it's
It's
like
a
when they
very
say,
interesting dynamic. If you dive into
yeah,
it, it is so self-revealing.
yeah. Well, it's like when people say, oh, money is the root of all evil. No,
Money is great. It buys me all
money's
kinds of shit. I love
fantastic. Um,
it.
monopoly money is fantastic for this realm, but it's the greed and the
Sure.
stuff that is produced within the person
Yeah.
that produces, because you have the same, you can give the same amount of money to five individuals and get five different responses from it.
Yeah.
So if you had, just like what you're saying, if you had that experience, that money was the catalyst that caused, that opened the
Sure.
door for all of these things, yeah, you're looking at money as the evil part, but it's not, that's not how that is really.
I think when all of your attention is put in all of one direction, too much of anything is not good.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
So I think that's really what we're learning every time we're here is like, how can we be balanced as individuals? How can we kind of throw out those energetic tendrils and have good,
Mm-hmm.
caring, compassionate
Yeah.
relationships, grow our soul, live our life purpose, and have
Mm-hmm.
peace and joy while living abundantly? That's a lot to ask.
Yeah.
That's why we got
Yeah.
to do it so many times because we have to learn, you know? It's hard. It's tough
Yeah.
being
It
human,
is.
just
It's
getting
not.
up and putting your pants on. It's tough, you know?
It is. It's hard to have that and to just really, it's a constant dance of balancing, right? And it's like we were talking to my husband one time about this similar topic, and I had said, abundance and stuff and money and things, like, it's fantastic, it's great, it's one of the fun things of this realm that everybody should get to experience. But at the end of the day, it's more so about the quality of your soul, not the quantity of the things that you accumulate, that you take with you, right? You can't
Yeah.
take all this with you when you die, um, kind of thing, but the quality into which you have achieved within your soul,
Yeah,
you for sure take that with you. And let me
absolutely.
tell you something. I endeavor to never do any of this shit again.
Yeah,
So
I know.
if it's brought to my attention, we're gonna handle it.
Yeah. I think that if more people, if for nothing else, to really understand your higher self, it is
Mm-hmm.
so beneficial.
Yeah, yeah, I
Just to
agree.
understand your higher self. Like, because I think there's a lot of metaphysicists out there that are teaching connecting with the higher self. And I don't think people really grasp who their higher self is. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
who is that, being who has existed through and held the knowledge of every lifespan that you have had, that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
energy that you're trying to connect with. That's the energy that you are trying to come into alignment with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which kind of circles back to our discussion that we've had previously on a podcast where we were talking about channeling, right? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't realize they're thinking they're channeling, Archangel Michael or Buddha, and it's your freaking higher self. Because yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that bitch is smart, been here many, many
Yeah,
times,
yeah,
plethora of information. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
it's not a light being, it's not Buddha, it's you. You, and not trying to sound like an asshole or pass judgment. And I'm
no, but
not
it's
saying everyone, but a
no,
lot of
no,
people.
no. Yeah. There are some very phenomenal channelers who
Yeah.
really hold, have that ability very strongly naturally and stuff like that because they've had so many experiences, lifetime experiences,
Yeah.
exercising that part of their abilities.
Yeah.
Um, and you can see, well, I mean, I can see that okay, where that's coming from. And then you see some that are supposedly channeling, Joe Schmo and Blow, and I'm like, that's not, which is unfortunate because credit should be given to the higher self because it's
Yeah. But a lot of
so,
people don't realize that connection. I think it's
yeah.
such a disservice to yourself. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
know how awesome my higher self is that has been able to hold and carry all the knowledge of all the lifespans that I have had.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you bet your sweet ass she's getting all the credit. He, she, it, whatever. It's getting
But yeah.
all the credit that I can possibly give
Mm-hmm.
every time. Yeah. I mean, can you connect with angels? Can you connect with deities? Can you connect with other energetic forms? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, in my experience, I've seen a lot of people who are channeling nobody other than their higher self. And what a shame that they're not getting the credit. What a
Right, right.
shame.
I
What a shame,
agree. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, so okay, let's do final advice or anything you want to say about past life and regressions.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I think maybe just understanding who that higher self is, understanding all the lives, all the knowledge that you possess that you can tap
Mm-hmm.
into. So important to understand that you can tap into that. The mechanic that has no idea why he's the mechanic, it just came naturally. It's because you've done it in another life or something like,
Right,
the
right.
artist that has been drawing since they were 2 years old. Yeah, boo, you've been doing that for many lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The musician, the same thing. It comes naturally because you've done it. You've already
Mm-hmm.
done it. You've already done it. That's all.
Yeah.
So, and that's
I
cool.
think
That's awesome.
that is, excuse me. I think that's something that deserves more attention and credit of just even connecting in with the higher self and not discounting the mechanic, the janitor, the homeless guy, all of this stuff,
Yeah.
because that's everything is serving, every role is serving. And I feel like if past lives, the topic of past lives regressions, or un- gaining a deeper understanding and knowledge of your struggles in this life or your obstacles, yeah, I highly encourage you to give past life, give it a thought, give it some
Yeah.
consideration, connecting with your higher self, finding someone to do a regression. I highly encourage everyone to do it. It's an
Absolutely.
experience,
It is.
and what's the
It,
worst that can happen? You get some healing and clarity, or you stay the same.
and I think it's important too to keep in mind that those people, the strangers that you're helping in this life,
Mm-hmm.
they've helped you in other lives.
Yep.
It's just a circle. It's such a beautiful circle. It's so
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. So wonderful. Um, so yeah, give freely. Give freely. And let
Yes.
that circle continue. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us for this episode of past life regression and reincarnation. I hope you found something that resonates with you. And if it did resonate with you or you know somebody, please, we appreciate all the likes and shares and comments as an energetic exchange. And let us know how you feel about past lives, regression, reincarnation, if you had any experience, and how that went. So, I think we're good.
Awesome. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.